Tux?
No.
Time
Time
Warner.
Warner. That's it.
Because like Eric and I are clapping on the exact second, and you're like a full-on 3/4 of a second behind.
Did you measure that 3/4 of a second?
Yeah, in my head. Smart ass. Jesus.
Maybe you have an overridden clock.
I'm actually not
Over,
overclocking this one.
Overdriven. Yeah. Yeah.
it is late on a Thursday night, and you know what that means?
Time to get ugly.
Time to get ugly.
Already done.
How's everybody doing?
Not too bad. It's my 4th anniversary with my wife today.
Ah, congratulations. And you're spending it with us.
I am.
What is wrong with you?
She prefers it this way.
Oh, smart. See,
It's easier for everybody.
we prefer you stayed with her.
Yeah. Well, no one really gets their way all the time.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna tweet this one out. See how long we can actually live stream. Let's see here.
So, who's going to be showing face for my meetup on the 19th?
Not it.
What is this? Episode 18?
Yes.
Dropbox says.
Yes.
All right, there we go. We tweeted that bad boy out.
You realize you did this after you started the show.
Exactly. Well, we haven't actually started talking about anything productive, although we probably won't do that all show. So.
I got it.
See where I went with that?
Oh, I did. Yeah.
No,
I was
I'm
trying to
missing
get
it.
John to follow along. He's just not a team player.
You never. So you really couldn't hear me. That's why you weren't answering me. I thought you were being a pain in the ass before the show started.
Nope,
But
we're not going to hear you.
No, we didn't
You-
hear you.
You never told me your boss got a little bit of a boo boo.
Oh, I didn't hear about this.
Oh.
I
Yeah.
just found out yesterday he got his license.
Yeah, and he's already had a little bit of an accident. I guess he's got a broken left leg.
Oh.
I'm guessing motorcycle accident.
Yeah. All right.
Since you're not really cluing anybody in on what's going on, I'd guess.
Yes. A friend of ours, John. Obviously, you know him as well. Got a motorcycle license recently, and he reached out to me because he knows I love riding, and we were talking about getting together and going riding. But before I even had that opportunity, I guess he got a little bit of a fender bender. Actually, from my understanding, it was a fender bender. Somebody rear-ended him, and he dropped his bike and ended up breaking his left leg,
Ooh.
which sucks.
Oh. Won't be typing with that leg anytime soon.
No, he will not. So what's everybody been up to this week?
I've been trying to dig through our topic list here. We've got way too much stuff.
Who is adding to our topic list?
There's no way we're getting through all of this tonight. That's crazy.
You've got to be positive.
I'm positive we're not going to get through this whole list.
Well, okay. I know exactly where to start though here. This is a gimme.
This is where I take my headphones off.
All right, what's the gimme?
Mr. Robot Season 2.
Oh, we have a transition for that actually.
Dun,
But,
dun, 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 dun.
I was going to transition your other article into that, but that's fine. Let's talk about Mr. Robot Season 2.
Jeez.
Well, because they referenced it.
Yeah, they did. And that article, I don't quite know how to approach. The article Eric's talking about is called the Autistic Programmer, or at least the dispelling the myths about the autistic wunderkind programmer. But this gave me a lot more questions than it did answers. I ran into this on the gamer blog Gama Sutra, which is about the development of video games, and it covered a lot of very interesting things about how enterprise level software development, groups approach autistic programmers and
Uh-oh.
basically
Are we losing him?
Yes, completely.
me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Am I cutting out?
Yeah, yeah.
You're fine now. You just It wasn't your mic. You completely cut out.
Yeah, you just froze.
Hold on, let me check my things that do downloads
Are they even running?
because they're always running. Nah, nothing's seating. Oh well.
All right. So your article, you were talking about autistic
Well,
programmers.
yeah. So the article's titled "Dispelling Some Myths About the Autistic Wunderkind Programmer," but it really contributes more to the sort of mythos of it than it does dispute it. Talking about how corporations like Microsoft have specific autism reach out programs so that they can be first in line to get the autistic programmer.
Yeah, that was a little unsettling to read that this is a demographic that gets targeted like that.
It's almost as if they're targeted for their willingness to self-abuse. They
Yeah.
they they want to overwork themselves. They want to spend more time than you permit them. Uh, and it's a very strange sort of take on disability oriented employment in the sense that this is a disability that is sought out by companies. This is something that companies see as a boon to their productive process.
Right.
And it was a very strange walk away from this article.
Yeah, I thought it's funny when I was reading it. I mean, clearly we all know the type of people that they're referencing in this article, and we probably all are this type of person on some level. I know there were parts of the article that really ring true to me. Uh, John has been dealing with a lot of it. He has to deal a lot with my quirks. So one of the big things that really rang true to me was when the one guy I think his name was Cody, who was a developer. He was talking about how he starts to get flustered with disagreements. Like he starts to get aggravated that he's not making his point clearly, and that's why people aren't understanding what he's saying. Like he has a good idea, but he can't express it. And I know that's something I fight with a lot. And I get to the point where I just shut down. I get to the point where I'll just flat out say, "Listen, I'm clearly not explaining myself. I don't know how to do it, so I'm
No,
going to
usually
stop
it's
trying."
stop. You normally say that first.
Okay.
Well, one of the quotes here out of the article is many struggle working with others, which is a requirement in software development. The games industry is extremely grueling, 60 to 70 hour work weeks with harsh deadlines. All of these things work to the weaknesses of autism. Most are not able to cope.
Yeah.
So the article it acknowledges that these issues that come with hiring the wunderkind autistic programmer, but it deals with them in a really inhuman, hands-off way. Like, how do you make these people comfortable? How do you make these people come to you? And I found the whole thing very strange. I never saw it from that perspective before now. And I think it's something that's not very openly spoken about in software development management, which is how do you get this guy who is worth $1 billion to you and make sure that he stays with you, even though he's going to be a complete pain in the ass. He's worth $1 billion.
Is that so? That's how you read that, really? It's interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the headlines here is making workplaces more hospitable.
Yeah.
And it details out. It details out specifically Asperger's, because Asperger's is a very high functioning end of the spectrum. Um,
Mm,
Again, the term spectrum is considered looked down upon by a lot of people, but for the sake of the simplicity of this argument, Asperger's is considered the high functional end of the spectrum, but it does have a lot of social issues, and the article explores the benefits and the drawbacks of that and dealing with that as a manager.
yeah, it's funny. That specifically got me thinking. It's like, how would a company look if, for example, you were in a cleaning service that, employed people with obsessive compulsive disorder. So you have like the best cleaning service in the world because you employ people who have this obsessive compulsive disorder to make sure things are clean.
Sure.
People would not tolerate that. It would be in a. Go ahead.
But then you look at the other end of it, and imagine you're at a 4th of July party, and the topic of autism comes up, and someone says, "Oh, my son is autistic," and you go, "Oh," and they say, "Yeah, he works at Microsoft," and you go, "Oh,"
Well,
you
no,
know
no,
what I
no.
mean?
I think my point being, obviously, uh, if they're in the industry, they're applying for jobs, you don't discount them. But I have an issue with the idea that they're being targeted. It just doesn't sit well with me. It's just
Well, and
feels
that's why
yucky.
Asperger's is a weird example of it, because Asperger's has trouble dealing with and having emotional responses. I had a friend in high school who had Asperger's, and he loved gaming, and we asked him about his favorite game, and he read off a review of the game from the back of the box.
Mm.
And we said, no, no, no. What's your opinion on the game? And he said, that's the opinion on the game. He didn't have a sense of self opinion.
Yeah.
And so how is a person with no sense of self being taken advantage of in a situation where we'd all be glad to work for Microsoft, making good money and being respected for our knowledge? It's I mean, I don't. That's the thing, is I posted this topic, but I don't have a point. I don't have a perspective on this besides, like, this is a really interesting thing to think about, because this doesn't get discussed by developers a whole lot.
Yeah, I still get yucky feelings thinking about people being targeted.
I
But
do too. Anytime somebody is targeted, any targeted marketing, targeted advertising, I feel yucky about. But it's also gainful employment,
yeah,
so I don't know how I feel.
It depends on how they're being taken advantage of, I guess. If they're well compensated and okay with it, if they're being taken advantage of, like, hey, we're paying you for 40 hours a week, but hoping they're going to work 60 to 70.
But that's already the case with everyone in the games industry. Everyone in the games industry is salaried and abused, or hourly and abused. There's nobody who's coming out of the games industry except for owners and shareholders who isn't being taken advantage of in some way.
so one piece of this post was talking about how certain people kind of view it as a superpower and how
Mhm.
it's constantly referenced in TVs and movies, which led us into one of our shows that Thomas, you and I watch, and looking forward to season 2 on coming up.
Yeah, starting next week.
Mr. Robot, yes, season 2. So you're a fan, I'm a fan. John, we got to get John on board on this one.
We tried to get John on board last week. After the show ended, we realized we hadn't discussed Mr. Robot, and it was coming up and needed to be discussed. And John said, "Well, I've never seen it. I don't know what you're talking about." And
Still haven't seen it.
Still don't know what we're talking about.
Nope.
It's only been on the topic list for a solid week. You know, one of the most realistic depictions of hacking, of corporate programmer lifestyle. Um, you know, very, very, very good show. I really recommend everyone go check it out. It's streaming all over the place. I
It's on
mean,
my list to watch. I just didn't get to it before this episode.
Awesome. So we've been challenged, or we've had a topic come up this past week, or past couple weeks actually, that is a very common issue in our industry, dealing with time zones.
What a pain in the ass.
Oh man, what a pain. So we've kind of the best way we've come up with managing it moving forward. So we have the issue of we've inherited legacy systems, all handling time zones and timestamps differently within their various areas. The one way we are now approaching the problem moving forward is standardizing on, hey, this is how we're going to store timestamps. So whenever you go to do a fetch, you always know this is your base, which is essentially a Greenwich Mean Time timestamp. And then how you present that to the consumer, there's a couple of ways that you can identify what time zone they're in. But that led this whole conversation about, the best way to detect the time zone a client's in, if it's a configuration issue, if it should be auto-detected. In some cases, we need to do both. A little bit of a conversation came around of if company, the company has a place in Los Angeles and a place in New York, and maybe the home office is in New York, and they pull up to look at entries for LA, if they should see a timestamp that says it's a Pacific Coast time, or if it should be converted to their time zone. I mean, just a lot of challenges around
There's a lot to
time zones.
think about. The biggest thing being how is data stored, which you brought up. Storing everything as GMT makes the most sense anymore. And then we got into a very heated conversation over the detection of time zones. And my big thing was we do our best to set a time zone for the user that we are currently displaying information to. And that's depending on the front end. Mobile developers are going to do it differently than web developers. And we do our best to detect it. We set it for the user, but they should have somewhere in their settings to change that.
yeah, if time is relevant to the information that's being provided, then they need to be setting their own time zone in one way or another. Um, and an interesting note on this is that, did you know that in MySQL, your MySQL config holds its own time zone information, which is separate from the Unix time zone that is in the system that's running the MySQL server.
I did hear that today, actually, and was kind of
So,
shocked by it.
yeah, it's pretty awful. I mean, you would think that at this point the time zone thing would be figured out. The first thing you install an OS, it asks you what time zone you're in. Why is that not getting propagated to web browsers and then sent as a header for everything that's getting sent?
Yeah.
It's
Have you had to deal with time zones in the past, Thomas? I'm just curious if
constantly.
what solutions you've come up with.
So my solution has been that we use Carbon for everything. If you're not aware, Carbon is a PHP library for handling time and date in a just gigantic number of ways. A lot of methods that chain, so you can say Carbon now plus 2 days, to date string or to date time string or to UTC time string or anything like that. We use that, but we also have the functionality of parse. So when you say carbon parse, the first argument would be your time string, and the second argument is your time zone. So what we do is we make sure that we're always establishing the time zone that the string is coming from, and then when we output a string, we establish the time zone that the string is being output to. And then Carbon handles all of the details from within there. So we just make sure that we're relying on Carbon as much as we can, and that we're always getting and setting where appropriate.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Carbon. I've done talks on Carbon in the past. So, and I think one of the things we did, the biggest thing we probably established today was differentiating between the data at rest and the. Why are you showing me a Cubs?
That's my souvenir from when my wife went out of town. Keep going. Keep
Oh,
going.
nice. The biggest thing we did was differentiating data at rest as opposed to data that is meant to be displayed to the client. So yeah, I think our plan of attack right now is just to everything that's at rest, everything that's in the database, get it in there, whatever it takes, get it in there as Greenwich Mean Time. That's how that timestamp's going to live in the database. Then when we extract it out, we have a known time zone that is stored at. If we need to convert it to another time zone, there's multiple ways of doing that. Carbon is a big one. There's JavaScript libraries that do similar functions as well.
And there are JavaScript libraries that do this because JavaScript itself can barely fucking handle dates and times. I hate dates and times. But see, this brings us into our next topic. Let's see, who put this on here? Who do I blame for this one?
That's me. I put it on there.
That's Eric. Do PHP and IoT have a future together? Obviously not. Because timestamps don't work. That's a good starting point, is just to say, do timestamps work in anything? Nah. IoT on its own is dumb and not going to work.
Okay.
I understand the ambition, but I'll let you introduce what you had to say here. I mean,
I actually didn't have a whole lot to say. I was kind of just curious. I've been getting into a lot of things lately. I'm constantly interested in the new and shiny objects. I've been really looking a lot into Google BigQuery. Been looking into machine learning. There's a great post out there right now on creating a Twitter bot using Laravel and machine learning to get the sentiment of a tweet. So if somebody tweets at you, you can get that sentiment. Marcus just joined the call. Well, that is interesting.
Marcus, what are you doing?
Marcus!
Welcome to the podcast.
You guys left it open.
I left it. So that's I didn't realize that was the same link. I thought that was the link to just the YouTube stream. Did not realize that was the link to join the podcast.
I clicked the link to join the YouTube stream and then joined the podcast.
Yeah, really. We will welcome. You're more than welcome to join us.
No, no worries. I'm actually about to check out. You guys are live really late, so
we always are.
I'll check the stream or the download a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah, you.
All right, brother.
All right.
Take it easy.
Well, that is good to know.
Note to self.
I was saying, my opinion on the Internet of Things is no. Just in general. The Internet of Things is god-awful stupid. And what people really don't understand about it is that it has nothing to do right now with programmers at our level. So when the internet, just the internet of internet, was being created, TCP/IP had to be incepted. Someone had to come up with this idea of secure packets with repeatable functionality. Packet loss was acceptable. Ping rates, routing, all this stuff had to be figured out. And the IoT is at that point right now, where we need to figure out what communication protocols work, what wireless signals are acceptable. Is it going to interfere with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi? Is it on the 5 gigahertz spectrum or is it on a low spectrum? The progress that's being made on the Internet of Things right now isn't software. It's conceptual. And it will be 10 years until the Internet of Things is an actual thing with actual software behind it. But at this point, it's completely fruitless to look into what language is going to power the Internet of Things, because the Internet of Things is going to be assembly first. And then it's going to progress into whatever, data collection, communication, collaboration software you come up with after that. But right now, it's not a thing. It's a potential thing. And it doesn't deserve time on Fox News or CNN because it isn't a thing yet. This is the scientific community, specifically the computer science community, trying to establish a system of standards to get this thing working, to get this thing feasible.
That's an interesting take on it, and much deeper than I thought anybody, more of an opinion than anybody would have on it.
I just like being able to click a button and order Doritos.
Yeah, until you see how your data is being collected and how Doritos is now marketing towards you. And I mean, I've told you the story about Target telling a father that his daughter was pregnant, right?
Yeah.
I read that.
There's an excellent episode of Radio Lab about mass data, and sort of the summary of the story is that the mass data that was being collected and used informed a father that his daughter had gotten pregnant before she was aware that she was pregnant, because of her shopping habit changes and stuff like that. And that's where Internet Things is going to take us at some point, is further and further into that realm of, oh my god, they're collecting all of my data because I'm making bagels in the morning instead of white bread toast. But we're not there yet. We're still in a different realm of just getting it to work. And people forget the Internet of Things works based off of RFID and low power wireless communication. The goal of RFID, which is the 5-cent chip, is still decades away. We've stopped talking about RFID as the technology of the future. We just sort of accept it's in our credit cards and stuff like that. But the goal of the RFID project is still decades away. We're nowhere near the 5-cent chip yet. And it's going to be a long time until we get there. So that's all for my heavily opinionated about something that's not important section of the podcast.
No, it's fine. I'll cut all that out. Don't worry about it. I cut out the whole Space Max conversation. Dude, you guys cannot let me podcast intoxicated. That is such a bad idea.
We also cannot stop you.
Oh, man.
Now that you say that, I did listen back, and I don't recall hearing it, so that's fun.
No, it was all gone. Well, I was already a little defensive about it when you said, yeah, no, you just droned on and on about that. I'm like, okay, I will remove that from the podcast.
You know what?
You know what's wrong, God?
Lagavulin loves me. Even if you don't.
I don't see how Marcus got to us. I'm on the stream.
It's in the podcast channel. There's just a link in the PHPUgly podcast channel.
But he's not on the
Yeah, he
Slack
is.
group.
Everyone is.
No, not.
Oh, wow, he's not. Weird.
No, that's the Diego Dev group. Anyway, something we didn't talk about, uh, going back to actual PHP code, is I knew you could use the word or in your if statements. If this or that.
I did not know that.
I always use pipes, always have. Most of the time I've seen people use the words or. It was in legacy code that I've adopted that I would end up just changing it because I don't like seeing it. And we have a new developer that came on and he started doing it. So I brought it up to the group. And of course, everyone agrees. You use pipes or ampersands for and. You don't use the words. And Thomas pointed out why. And
There's actually a reason behind that.
yeah, I knew there was a difference in order of operations when the word or is put in versus the pipes. But Thomas went a little deeper in the explanation, and I thought it was very interesting, and I thought I'd give him a chance to share that knowledge.
Do
Nope.
share. No?
Ah, jeez, okay. Well, okay, so we use double pipes, meaning or.
Hmm.
And in PHP, it translates to an operator in C. However, the word or translates to the comparator operator. So this would be the same or as XOR or AND or XAND or any of those other bitwise operators. They function essentially the same. They're comparing two variables, and because of this, you can sort of use them transparently. PHP being a non-strictly typed language will try to type things so that they are comparable. The place where you have to be careful is that if you have a string being compared with the word or to an integer, it will actually recast your string to an integer and keep it recast as an integer. So when you use it later, it's now stuck.
Hmm.
So it's not recommended to use the words or and, because what you're doing there is calling functionality that you don't necessarily understand or expect. I mean, when you're using it in an if statement, you just want a comparative this or this to equal true. You don't want to do a real hard typing operation against the two of them.
Yeah, but again, there's also the order of operations issue, and an example that I saw on php.net was a variable equals true or false, and it's going to take the first one no matter what, just because of the way the order of operations works.
Right, and a common pattern in PHP is saying if variable equals method, and then using the variable within the if statement.
Mhm.
The word or can screw things up there. The word or can pass the variable on without having properly assigned a value to it. So yeah, it does screw with order of operations a lot. Definitely if you're mixing the operator with the terminology, the term, then you're going to make things a billion times worse.
Yeah. It was just an interesting thing that came up this week. Thought I would share.
Is that our legacy code minute with John Congdon?
Gotta have one every week. Legacy code. So you brought up asking who's going to be at your upcoming meetup.
Well,
We have the Laravel upcoming meetup too, that I know Eric is going to miss. I know I'm going to miss it too,
why is
but
that?
for different reasons. Mine reasons don't matter. Eric, why are you missing?
Jeez. Just the non contribution you bring to the podcast really excites me.
So I will be attending Laracon US the end of this month. I'm looking forward to that. But some exciting news came about. So Laracon US is sold out. It's been sold out for a little while. I guess now they're offering a streaming ticket, so you can get. I don't know if it's a live stream or I think it's the same day of the conference.
It is both, actually. They're doing
Is it?
something smart, as has been proven by us in just this very podcast, which is that live streaming is difficult.
So yeah, it does say live stream and early access video. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
so what they've done is they've acknowledged that live streaming sucks, and there is no guarantee that the live stream is going to work when you purchase this package from them. However, they will be making the video data available after the stream as well, and your live streaming purchase gets you both of them. And you are given a guarantee that there's going to be video of the presentations, just not necessarily live streamed in case there are technical difficulties. Which I don't blame them at all.
That and the fact that not everybody's. If you can't go to the conference, chances are you can't sit there for 6 hours a day and watch a live stream either. So,
I went to the conference last year and I couldn't sit there for 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know they serve alcohol in hotel bars?
Really?
I found that out.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool, I think. And the really cool thing about Laracon, I've said it before, and the reason why this live stream package is a good alternative is that it is a one-track conference, so there aren't multiple talks going on at the same time. So whatever is being broadcast on the live stream is the exact same talk that everybody there is at. There's no other talk happening at the same time.
Now, during the Laracon presentations, 5.3 is going to be released at the event. But there's also been a lot of rumor from Taylor, the developer of Laravel, that there are a couple one more thing type announcements to make at the conference. So
this is true. Yeah, they been some. I mean, he's not even really hinting to what they are. Just he's trying to get them wrapped up before the conference so that he has them.
Yeah, and we'll remember that last year Spark was the big one more thing that was officially announced at Laracon.
Yeah.
So it should be interesting to see what comes out of it this year.
Yeah. Yep. Cool stuff. Cool stuff.
Did you guys know that I'm doing a presentation on security at the next SDPHP meetup?
I did not.
Did not. Nope.
Are you just saying that for the podcast, or do you really not care that much?
I was making sure you were going to that next Trello post.
Really? Just haven't been looking. Why? What are you talking about?
Wait, you know security?
Security's a thing. Yeah, I gave a presentation about a year and a half ago about security that was unfortunately poorly attended for a number of reasons. But this year I've given it a catchy title.
Okay, what's that?
Let's hack a website.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to have sample code on GitHub, and we're going to develop a poorly developed website and just hack the shit out of it.
Well, that's fun. But you know what? One of the biggest security holes with security. What? You know what? One of the biggest security holes on sites are.
Let's take a quick silent break, real quick.
So
one of the interesting topics that I'll be bringing up is.
Wait a minute! Oh, you're totally gonna sneak this one from me. I was taking you there, you little bastard.
You were dancing me there. I liked it.
Go ahead. No, you can have it now.
No,
Silence break. And go. asshole. Swear to God, I don't like working with you.
Okay, John, you're like 5% of this podcast. Why don't you walk us into this next topic?
5%?
I think
You
he's talking
don't
to
talk.
Is it that
you
high?
don't. You're like Silent Bob of the group.
Yeah. One of the big security
I
issues.
did the whole last topic. Look, I've done 2 topics today. Come on now. This is fun. I'm going to bed. I'm tired.
had such
Record
good
too.
progress going.
We record too late and too long.
Mark it. It's been 40 minutes. John is going to bed.
John hasn't had anything to drink tonight.
Yeah. Is that out of sympathy for your wife? Are you not allowed to drink now?
Self-imposed. She has nothing to do with it.
You guys need to focus.
So
One of the
because
biggest
I don't want to
threats-
be. I don't want to have had drinks and then go to a hospital at 3 in the morning because that would suck.
That would be way better than being sober at a hospital.
Nah. Anyway, go ahead.
One of the biggest security issues is stupid users. Or
End users.
or we'll just call them end users. So I saw Eric posted a very interesting package here, which is designed to prevent users from using stupid passwords.
But aren't there already a ton of packages out there? So why does Laravel need a specific one?
That's a good question, Eric.
It's just a nice, neat package for a Laravel application. I'm not aware of. I'm sure there are other packages out there, John, but I have not used them, nor am I aware of them. I mean, I've always done your basic validation as far as length and things like that, but this kind of takes it a step further. It looks for common used passwords, simple passwords, things like that. Is there one out there that's really popular that I don't know of?
Not necessarily. I was wondering how this one differed. I've used various JavaScript libraries that try to tell you how strong or weak your password is, and then based on that score, you could not allow a password through. It doesn't mean people can't get around that because it's JavaScript, not necessarily within your PHP code. It's just something on the front end, so it's visible by the end user.
I think this gets into the territory of reinventing the wheel, where there are best practices for passwords, and you don't necessarily want to become an expert to understand them. It's nice to have a simple one-call package that adds a validation to your Laravel for the purpose of validating password security. Laravel specifically implements validation in a very easy-to-use way, and I think this just extends it very nicely.
Yeah, and when you talk about things like security and validation, you almost can't have too many layers, I feel. But the thing that's cool about this package specifically, like I said, this is targeted for applications, so there's no additional work to do. It actually goes right into your existing validation call. So as you're validating something, a password's a perfect example. You can make sure it's required. You can make sure it has a minimum length. All your typical validation commands in Laravel, this just becomes another pipe where it says the keyword they use is dumb, D-U-M-B, PWD, dumb password. You add that to your validation of password, and it sends it through and does again, looks for common passwords, simple passwords.
And then you pass back to your end user. Hey, your password's dumb, try again.
What you pass back to your user is up to you.
Are we allowed to point out that end users are stupid?
I don't like to say anybody's stupid, but
I don't like to. That's not what I'm saying.
So this really makes it simple. And again, this is only doing a check against existing a dictionary of existing worst passwords. Things like password 1234, password 123. You need to change your password, by the way, John. All these. It doesn't add. It doesn't do the minimum, maximum. It doesn't do any of the other stuff that you'd normally handle in your validation. It just is almost a dictionary. I think it's basically doing a dictionary lookup of known passwords.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing that Mark Zuckerberg got his Twitter and LinkedIn hacked because of basically bad passwords. So it's the kind of thing that would cover that situation. And there is a matter of liability on your end as the web developer to ensure that passwords are secure, even though users want insecure passwords.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it behooves you to make sure that your users are using secure passwords. Another good package that came out, and something that we've had some experience with lately, it's always challenging when you're writing an application that is dependent on email.
Mm-hmm.
Because forwarding the emails through, is a pain in the ass, really, and not always needed.
Email in general just sucks.
Right. And Thomas, I think you've talked in the past about Mailtrap, right? I'm pretty sure you've talked
I don't
about
know
it.
if you brought it up here, but it's something that I use frequently, and it's a great service that I don't pay for,
Right.
and probably should, because they have collaborative versions and stuff like that.
Right. So it basically what that does is it gives you an endpoint to send your email to, and it just captures it. It doesn't forward it on because they're not real emails. They're not going to real addresses. You just want to capture it and make sure that it went out.
Well, and you want to see the rendered content. That's the most important part, is that with any development I've done with email, there's the HTML body and the text body. There's rendered content that you have to view in one email client versus another. It's one of those things that's almost completely impossible to test. And Mailtrap allows you to capture email outbound to any address with a simple configuration toggle. It saves a huge headache.
Right. So that's a service that's out there. It takes a little configuring to get set up, and there's a free tier, and of course there's a paid tier. But now there's also a package that's been released by the guys over at Titan called Mailthief that essentially does the same thing. It just keeps everything local on your box. So the email actually never even leaves your box, which might be helpful, especially if you're doing development where you don't have connectivity to the internet. That's probably a real benefit.
But does it actually give you an interface so you can go back and look at the mail, or is it just...
Yeah, it doesn't give you an interface, but it does log it, so you can go look at the log. It captures the email as it would have went out, so you're able to pull it up. There's just no pretty interface to it. I haven't used it.
That's Titan as in Kegels, not Titan as in Goliath.
Yes, that is 100% correct. Fun fact: one of the names
are tight.
One of the names we were going to go with as a company name was Titan. I was looking to name us Titan, as in Titan, but that's, as you would suspect, a very common name and very tough to get any domains, Titan domains. So
we could buy the Titan top level domain.
Is there a Titan top level domain?
No, you can buy any top level domain. You just got to have a lot of
million
money.
Yeah, no, I'm okay, thanks.
He's got a good point though.
No, he doesn't.
If you really want to commit to it, a couple $1 million says a lot.
It's not a couple million, is it?
It's pretty expensive.
I thought it was $100,000, but
yeah. So I've been sharing with you guys my VueJS adventures, right?
Have you been keeping it up like you said you were going to?
I've wavered a little bit this past week, just because I've had other issues. I did
How is that hernia, by the way?
We haven't talked about it. I launched a PHPUgly website finally, and that was going to be my little playground for VueJS. But when all was said and done, I didn't have any good ideas to use VueJS, so I didn't implement it yet. I still have a couple things I might do. I might use it to grab our Twitter stream and post it in there. I don't know yet. But VueJS is coming out with a new version. I suspect it's going to be coming out here in the next month or two. It's version 2.
So this is a major revision. This isn't just a small update.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's mainly adding features. It is deprecating a couple of features. One of the things it's deprecating is a feature that it had called sync, and it's funny because I just started doing some research on this and trying to think about where I could use it. And essentially, what sync did is if the state of something changed in a child node, you could sync that so it would bubble back up to its parent node. So there's this idea of parent and children nodes, and typically the way JavaScript works is if state changes, it only goes downstream. It doesn't bubble back up. And sync gave you this ability to change state back up to the parent node. I guess when all was said and done, they just felt like you could get your application in a weird state, and so they're essentially deprecating sync moving forward. I don't know if they're deprecating it or if they're completely removing it at version 2, but that's one of the things that it's targeted to kind of go away. I do know one of the things that they're adding to VueJS version 2 is the virtual DOM. And I know, John, you've got some experience working with DOMs, right? Do you understand what a benefit of a virtual DOM is?
Not a clue, but I'm interested to read about it.
Yeah, so just a little reading I've done on it. I guess it makes it quicker than interacting with the actual DOM. So what you do is you interact with a virtual DOM, and then it just does a diff against the real DOM. And for some reason, that is quicker than trying to manipulate the actual DOM.
Well, I think when you're manipulating the actual DOM, is the browser then has to worry about re-rendering the page or making changes there. So, like you said, this just makes it quicker.
Yeah. So
when you're doing one-off things, it's not a big deal. But people don't realize if you start changing, 10, 15 elements on the page, it's the browser's usually trying to keep up with that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Where this would be in the virtual DOM, I guess when you're done with that, it would make all those changes at once to the DOM and then one update.
Yeah, that's I think what it's targeted to do.
Yeah, I know with jQuery, they often recommended doing things on an element that's not in the DOM yet. So you would do everything in JavaScript first, and then affect the DOM just one time. So it sounds like it's similar to that, but makes it easier on the developer to manage it.
Sounds exactly correct. Yeah. I noticed the other thing. I noticed this when I was doing my single page app, and it's funny. I actually also noticed this when I go to Laracast. So Jeffrey Way is a big supporter of Vue.js. Clearly, he uses it on Laracast, and you can hit certain pages in Laracast, and if you have a quick enough eye, you'll see the mustache curly brackets in certain places of the page. And these are the Vue.js kind of markers where things Vue.js is going to populate that area. So you'll see this big, this little mustache curly bracket, double curly bracket come up and maybe say something like profile. And then all of a sudden the profile would populate that area of the page. In version 2, it's going to have server-side rendering, which should do away with that quick flash of the double curly brackets when the page loads. So that's going to be interesting. I'm not sure if that's going to add load to the site or not, but it should be helpful. I think it's more of a user interface thing, just to look nicer for the end user. It really doesn't have a functional purpose, but
That'd be interesting to try.
I got to refresh my beer.
We're almost done.
That was insightful. Yeah, exactly.
We're just about wrapping up.
I mean, it's like 11:40 at night, man. How many more beers do you need?
I'll be right back.
Hustle!
You don't want to see me hustle. It's awful.
He was serious. He's leaving. Come on.
Oh, God. Yeah, so I tweeted out the wrong link. That's what happened.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, there's a freaking... I must have not copied the YouTube link when I posted. It was fortunately it was Marcus. It was actually somebody we knew.
Yeah, that's funny.
So, I'm really feeling like we're done here. Like we could be done in like 5-10 minutes.
Right. That's what I understand. Why? I'll try to contribute more. I didn't realize it was that big of a deal.
That's fine. What the hell? Oh God, he's got his cat. Look at the kitty. Are you gonna put your headphones on? He's frozen again. Here we go. You all better? You got your beer?
I'm John Congan. Bye.
Are you going to make the podcast after the emergence?
No. This might be my last one ever.
Well, Eric and I have been talking about that, actually.
That's fine. Just say the word.
Are we done talking about stuff?
Well, okay. I interrupted your VueJS thing.
No, you didn't. We were wrapping up.
we were pretty much done with it.
No, before we wrap up, there is one thing I want to say. The Internet of Things is stupid.
We had completely different things to say.
Yeah. No, I do love you guys, but the Internet of Things is stupid.
I agree.
One of my favorite blogs.
I'm gonna throw one more thing out there. Okay. I think we might have been doing something wrong for a very long time. And
I agree wholeheartedly.
The more I look into this, the more I'm getting sold on Postgres.
Okay, now I disagree.
Do you disagree?
Yeah, Postgres is... No.
I only dislike Postgres because somebody else keeps pushing it so hard.
So I'm
the same way about Fox Pro.
That's awesome.
Oh, by the way, all this stuff we're talking about, you have live on air.
That's right.
That whole break where we were talking about, who, as he went to get a beer.
Thomas?
He's going to go back and rewatch this and be able to see it.
No, he won't.
Okay, no, everyone knows that that's not true.
So Postgres, the one thing that I've always shied away from Postgres, we've talked about this in the past, are clients. There are no good clients, and I need a client to interact with the database. I'm just not that good at the raw commands to interact with the database. So I've always shied away from Postgres, and I never really understood the differences between Postgres and MySQL. And we've had a project recently where we were asked to use Postgres, so I started looking more into it. We're using Postgres. I've stumbled on a couple things. Now, for one of our meetups, our upcoming meetup, or not our upcoming meetup, but August's meetup, we have somebody who's going to come in and do a talk on Postgres, so I looked into it some more, and I'm really starting to feel like we're missing the boat with Postgres. Postgres is kind of forces you to do certain things correctly that MySQL is a little bit more forgiving on. And I think
So it's the opposite of PHP.
exactly, yes. I think we've kind of fallen into the same kind of structure of where poor coders fall into. They use the path of least resistance, the easiest thing to do. That gets the job done. Whether it's right or wrong, it gets the job done. I feel like I've become that person with databases. I've definitely have gone down the path of least resistance, and I'm at a point where I'm starting to reevaluate that, and I'm getting very close to going full in on Postgres. I'll see what how the presentation goes on Postgres. I'm still doing some research on it, but I think we're doing things wrong when we're using MySQL as heavily as we're using MySQL.
Here's the question: You're a huge proponent of Vim.
Yes, this is true.
That is one of the reasons I don't use Vim. So
That's hurtful.
So how
that is
would
so
you
hurtful.
getting? Oh, I'm kidding.
That is
Everyone I know who's into Postgres is super into Postgres. This is way better. Everything's calculated better. Everything is
so the one thing
better.
I used to notice about Postgres is if you're a database person, you're into Postgres. If you're a developer, you're into MySQL. And that always kind of raised the antenna to me. It's like, okay, why are the people who are really into databases into Postgres? And I had always kind of brushed it off as, well, Postgres is more Oracle-like, and so, which is funny because Oracle owns MySQL, but this was before Oracle owned MySQL. And my justification was Postgres is more Oracle-like. These are database people who ultimately have the goal to work in an Oracle environment, so Postgres is ACID compliant, all this other stuff.
So is MySQL.
Well, not by default it isn't, is it? I think you have to do some customization.
It is now. It wasn't.
So I don't know. I'm starting to buy into this whole Postgres thing. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there.
I understand that.
Let me ask you this: do you have a good justification for me not to use Postgres?
Yes. Describe a table.
Are you asking me that? Or are you doing some weird?
No, my experience with Postgres is that in their attempt to be a more improved database engine, they have completely left helpful functionality on the floor.
Such as
describing a table.
Describe a table.
Describe table, semicolon, enter, gives you the table's description, how it was created.
Uh-huh.
I found out through no small amount of effort that in Postgres this is /G table name.
Mm-hmm.
The documentation.
But I mean that's just understanding the difference, right? I mean, oh, here we go. You know it's late. You know it's late. The wife is popping in. That's just a matter of understanding how to use the tool.
Sure, but there is a trade-off of simplicity in use versus performance, and if the performance.
Well, I actually think performance sides with my understanding of it is performance sides with MySQL.
Right, performance side. Well, the performance on indexes sides with Postgres.
Really?
But ease of use sides with MySQL.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's how much money does it cost you to develop?
But again, your justification is it's easier to use, which is not always a good approach.
No, it's not always, but you have to evaluate the balance between is it easy to use and is it cheap to run. How many queries are you running? How hard is it to deal with as a database engine? we could use, theoretically, the most complex high-performance database engine possible on any of the projects that we work on. It's just that the value in having an employee who can understand and manipulate those
But see,
is not there.
but I mean, I don't think there's that big of a discrepancy. I mean, you're making you're equating it to almost an Oracle solution where there's just such a huge jump.
Absolutely am.
Yeah, so I don't think there's that big of a jump from MySQL to Postgres. I think that gap is a lot smaller. And
do you know what Galera is?
No.
Galera is a multi-mastered replication schema managed by the group that created the MySQL spinoff.
MarineDB?
No. MariaDB is literally a MySQL.
Percona. You think of
Percona. Yeah. Percona has released a massive library of free tools for managing MySQL. Managing and whole infrastructure control. A set of tools that simply doesn't exist for other databases, or at least not at the price point.
So if you want to have that argument, we could go down the path of there are features that we haven't been using because they weren't available in MySQL. I mean, MySQL just now is developing a JSON data type, which isn't a very good implementation. You're hoping that matures and gets better.
And it's not useful, though.
But Postgres has this already.
But how is it useful?
But it's still not useful.
Why is it not useful?
Because it's running NoSQL in a MySQL column.
I don't know. I think it's. I would tend to disagree with you, but I haven't used it to know for sure.
Well, we had
another example. We just had a conversation about time zones, and Postgres has the ability to store the time zone that a timestamp is saved as.
So does MySQL.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, yes, it does.
How does MySQL store the time zone that a timestamp is saved as?
The UTF compatible column.
I was not aware of that. So, okay, well, perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps I'm going down the wrong path here, but
You're not going... Okay, no, further knowledge is never the wrong path. Knowing why one thing is better than the other is never the wrong path. That's how you become an expert, is by knowing differences between A and B.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say that evaluating determining the value difference between MySQL, Percona, Postgres, Oracle is the expertise. MySQL or NoSQL or TinySQL, MiniSQL, whatever the built-in one that's in PHP now.
NoSQL?
No. There's a built-in MySQL database in PHP now.
Oh, I don't know.
Knowing the
SQLite?
difference.
You're talking about SQLite?
Yeah, SQLite.
Yeah.
Which is a flat file-based storage system with simple indexing and whatever. Knowing the value differences between them is what makes you a leader in the consulting area, saying, don't use that, use this. Well, why? Well, because I've been doing this for 20 years. I know the difference.
But so if I came to you a year from now and told you to use Postgres, you would take me more at my word? No.
But then I would also be a year more experienced, and still more experienced than you.
Oh man.
What a dick.
I know, right? I'm somewhere on the spectrum.
This is gonna be another big editing project. So one of you bozos need to take up editing.
One of these days.
Our 30-minute podcast right now is at an hour 10 minutes, so that's fantastic.
You can cut it down to 50.
No, we could cut out you getting your beer. That's gonna cut out a ton.
A ton. You
Well,
cut
I
out me
think this
watching
is
my
a
wife
good
dance
spot to
naked for
wrap
me,
things
too.
up. I think this is another good episode. No funny bits. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cut out the whole funny thing at the beginning because you guys are lean. So that's that.
The question is John welcome back for the next episode, or do we just replace him with Marcus? Since he
Mar-
showed up,
Marcus would be
on his own.
Marcus would be way better than me. No question. If you could hook him into it, go for it.
But he already said we record too late.
I say that every week, and I'm still here.
We don't care so much about your
You're
opinion.
barely here.
That's why.
You're only here apparently 5% of the effort.
I thought that was generous. Thank you.
You know what? If we called this the late night frisbee cast, he'd be here on point.
I've been watching Frisbee while you guys been talking.
I know.
Can't even
Don't
get
ask
you
me how I know.
focused when you're here.
Dude, you guys, this security presentation is going to be fucking great.
Yeah, we haven't finished. We're still broadcasting.
Yes, we have.
You're a loser.
Well, it's Facebook. Of course, it's going to feed him frisbee videos.
Oh, man. All right.
All right, guys. As always, it's been a podcast. I'm Tom Rideout.
I may not be here, John Congdon.
I'm Eric Van Johnson.
That was very
Keep it ugly.
That'll work.
No. Which one are you going to choose? Keep it ugly or that's very stupid?
That's very stupid. It was very stupid that I said I may not be here next week, John Congdon.